So this is your paper, May June 2024, paper 1 variant 1. चलो इससे start करते हैं भाई. Now let's see. Initially you have some data points and then you have the first question. So what is the first question saying? Which unit is an SI base unit? बेटा कौन सा unit is an SI base unit? Yes. Which unit is an SI base unit? Yeah. कौन सा unit is an SI base unit? If you have studied the 7 SI base units, you will know ampere is an SI base unit. A is your answer. Coulomb is not an SI base unit. Degree Celsius is not an SI base unit. And consequently, the only SI base unit here is ampere A. चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं भाई. Let's move ahead. Let's see question number 2. Which of the following could have the same SI unit as force? Perfect. What are the SI units of force? The SI units of force are kg, ms minus 2. Which one of them will have the same SI base units? Now, either you can apply a little brain here or you can just brute force this method. Either way, आपका सही answer आ जाएगा. Now, if you examine option A, what is energy? What is energy? Energy का SI base unit क्या होता है बेटा? I have told this multiple times that energy and work done are interchangeable. Energy and work done are interchangeable. So how can you write energy? Energy is equals to force into distance divided by distance. Distance cancel out. This actually is force written. And force का SI base unit क्या होता है? kg ms minus 2. A is your answer. Simple. Nothing complicated here. नहीं नहीं C कैसे होगा भाई? Not C. If you analyze C, you have momentum into distance. What is momentum? mv into distance. What are the units of mass? Kg. What are the units of velocity? ms minus 1. What are the units of distance? Meter. This comes out to be kg m2 s minus 1. We have a square on meter. This cannot be your answer. This also will not be your answer. This also will not be your answer. Simple as that. Okay, chalo. I hope you guys get it. Let's move on to question 3. The velocity of an object changes from an initial velocity u to a final velocity v. The vectors represent these velocities. Which single vector represents the change in velocity of the object? So, how can you write the change in velocity of an object? Change in velocity is equals to final velocity minus initial velocity. The final velocity is acting downward. You have a negative of initial velocity. If this is positive u acting towards the right, what will be negative u? Acting towards the left. Can you calculate the resultant vector here? Can you calculate the resultant vector here? Yes. Can you calculate the resultant vector here? Yes, beta. Can you calculate the resultant vector here? Resultant vector निकाल सकते हो? Yes, very easily. You can bring this vector to the downside. Like this. Now this suffice your head to tail. Now, sir, why have you done that? Because if you note, initially both the tails of the vectors were connected together. Head to tail rule was not being satisfied. As you move the vector u towards the downside, the head is now connected with the tail. Head to tail rule is being sufficed. And now you can make the resultant vector like this. This is your resultant vector. Or you can say this is your change in velocity. Any answers like that? C is your answer. C is your answer. All clear up till now? Beta first 3 MCQs में any questions up till now? First 3 MCQs में any questions up till now? An object is moving with an initial velocity u. The object then moves with a uniform acceleration a for time t until it reaches a final velocity of v. Which equation describes the motion of the object? Okay, which equation describes the motion of the object? So we are asked about the equation of the motion. Can you see A is not an equation of a motion? A is not an equation of a motion. If you analyze, B is your equation of a motion, because if you take negative 80 towards the other side, it will become what? U plus 80 is equals to B. Yeah, this is an equation of a motion that we have studied. जो चार equations of motion लिखवाई थी बेटा मैंने वो याद है. What were the four equations of motion that I taught you? V is equals to U plus 80. Second was what? S is equals to U plus V over 2 divided by T. Multiplied by T, sorry, divided by 2 multiplied by T. Third equation was S is equals to UT plus half AT square. Fourth equation क्या थी बेटा? V square is equals to U square plus 2AS. So only B is the correct answer. B is your answer. Which calculation produces a vector quantity? Current into time will produce what? Current into time will produce charge. This is not a vector quantity. Final displacement minus initial displacement will produce change in displacement. And displacement is a vector quantity. B is your answer. Simple. Let's further move ahead. A thermometer can read up to an accuracy of plus minus zero point 0.5 degrees centigrade. This thermometer is used to measure the temperature rise from 40 degrees centigrade to 100 degrees centigrade. What is the percentage uncertainty in the measurement of the temperature rise? What is the percentage uncertainty in the measurement of the temperature rise? So when you measure the temperature rise, बेटा जब आप temperature rise measure करोगे, what will happen? You will measure the temperature at 40 degrees centigrade. At 40 degrees centigrade, you will have an uncertainty of plus minus zero point 0.5. Then you will measure the temperature at 100 degrees centigrade. You will again have an uncertainty of plus minus zero point 0.5 degrees centigrade. Then you will calculate the difference in temperature. 100 minus 40, the difference in temperature is 60 degree. But always remember, whenever you are adding or subtracting, your uncertainties add up. Zero point 0.5 plus zero point 0.5. What will be your uncertainty? 1. Can you calculate the percentage uncertainty? 1 divided by 60 into 100. What will be your percentage uncertainty by? Calculate karo zara. Your percentage uncertainty comes out to be 1.667. D is your answer. Let's further move ahead. The diagram shows the path of a golf ball. Which row describes the changes in the horizontal and vertical components of the velocity of a golf ball when air resistance is ignored? Beta, when air resistance is ignored, do you remember the horizontal component of velocity in projectile motion used to remain what? There used to be a constant horizontal velocity. So option A or B cancel out. The vertical component of velocity will have a constant acceleration downward. C is your answer. The vertical component will have what? Constant acceleration downward. And horizontal component will have what? Constant velocity. This was the basics of projectile motion when air resistance was not present. Chalo, let me give you one more revision here. Whenever you are in a projectile motion and air resistance is negligible, what is the constant acceleration that is acting downward? The value of constant acceleration that is acting downward in the vertical direction is 9.81 ms minus 2. Perfect. An aircraft flies from London to Sydney in a time of 21 hours 40 minutes. Perfect. It flies from London to Sydney in 21 hours 40 minutes. The distance is this. What is the average speed of the aircraft? Can you realize we have to calculate the answer in meters per second? Yes. So, क्या करें? If you have to calculate the average speed, what will you do? You will say it is equals to distance over time. Perfect. What is the distance? 17,000 kilometers. 17,000 into 10 raised to the power of 3. What is the time? Time is 21 hours and 40 minutes. So what will be the total amount of minutes? Beta, minutes kitni hongi? Yes. Can any genius tell me how many total minutes will we have? Total minutes will be what? 21 into 60 plus 40. This is equals to 1300 minutes. Can anyone tell me how many seconds will we have? Yes, 1300 into 60. Simple. Can you calculate this answer? 1700 into 10 raised to the power of 3 divided by 1300 into 60. This comes out to be 217.9 ms minus 1. So this is your answer, 217.9 ms minus 1. Now, how can you summarize this answer? बेटा इस आंसर को किस तरह समराइज कर सकते हो? नाउ द एग्जामिनर हैज प्लेड विथ यू. बेटा एग्जामिनर ने आपके साथ यहाँ पे गेम की हुई है. गेम किस तरह की हुई है? जस्ट सी. A cannot be your answer obviously because it is 2.2. Perfect. A cannot be your answer because it is 2.2. If you analyze B, ये क्या है बेटा? This is micro. So B will become what? 2.2 into 10 raised to the power of 7 into 10 raised to the power of minus 6. This is equals to 2.2 into 10 raised to the power of 1. This is equals to 22. B can also not be your answer. Let's analyze option C. 2.2 into 10 raised to the power of 11 into nano, that is 10 raised to the power of minus 9. This comes out to be 2.2 into 10 raised to the power of 2. This comes out to be what? Yes, genius is 220, which is roughly equal to your answer. C is your answer. Do you realize the games that the examiner play? C is your answer. Chalo, let's move on to the next question. A golf ball, a golf club hits a golf ball. The graph shows how the force on the ball varies with time. Which graph shows how the velocity of the ball varies with time? So we have to tell the velocity versus time graph. If you can analyze the force versus time graph ka gradient is what? The force versus time graph ka gradient is constant. Perfect. Or you can say the force is constantly increasing. The force is constantly increasing. If the force is constantly increasing, what does that mean? Your acceleration will be constantly increasing. If your acceleration is constantly increasing, your velocity time graph will have an increasing curve. Your velocity time graph will have an increasing curve. Why? Why will your velocity time graph will have an increasing curve? Because gradient of velocity time graph is equals to acceleration. If acceleration is increasing, gradient is increasing, you will have an increasing curve like this. In the second half of the graph, can you see force is decreasing? Acceleration will decrease, your gradient will be decreasing, you will have a decreasing curve here. Part B will be your answer, or option B will be your answer. Up till now, any ambiguities in the first 9 questions? बेटा first 9 questions में कोई मसला पूछ लो मुझसे. Yes. What is meant by mass and weight of an object on the earth? What is mass? The property that resists its acceleration. Yeah, D could be your option. And what is weight? The pull of the earth on it. Yeah, D is your answer. Simple as that. बेटा first 10 questions हम कर चुके हैं. 25. You can write this down. अगर gradient increase हो रहा है तो you will draw an increasing curve. Gradient decrease हो रहा है, you will draw a decreasing curve like this. If gradient is positive and constant, what will you do? You will draw an upward sloping line like this. If the gradient is negative and constant, what will you do? You will draw downward sloping line. If the gradient is 0, what will you do? एक horizontal सी line बना दो. Simple. इसको copy कर लेना बेटा if you want to. And let's further move ahead. A thin horizontal plate of area this is beneath the surface of liquid of density this. The force on one side of the plate due to pressure on the liquid is this. Perfect. Area is this. What is the depth of the plate beneath the surface of the liquid? Chalo, let's see this. A thin horizontal plate has an area of this, is beneath the surface of liquid density this. Perfect. The force on one side of the plate due to the pressure of the liquid is this. Perfect. So we are given the pressure. We are given the force. बेटा हमें force given है and we are given the area. We know pressure is equals to force over area. If you are given the force, if you are given the area, can you calculate the pressure? जी बिल्कुल निकाल सकते हो. 290 divided by the area, that is 0.036. The pressure comes out to be what? Pressure क्या आ जाता है? 290 divided by 0.036. This comes out to be 8055 pascals. Simple is your pressure. And you know that the density is this. So you can do what? Pressure is equals to rho gh. प्रेशर का क्या फॉर्मूला? प्रेशर की क्या वैल्यू थी? 8055. Density is 930. Since you are not given the acceleration due to gravity or g की value नहीं given, you will place 9.81 here. Multiply. What will your height or depth come out to be? 8055 divided by 930 into 9.81. Can you calculate this answer? बेटा इस आंसर को कैलकुलेट कर सकते हो? जी बिल्कुल कर सकते हो. Your answer comes out to be 0.88 meters. Your answer comes out to be 0.88 meters is your answer. Simple. Sphere x and y form an isolated system. ठीक है, sphere x and y form an isolated system. आगे पढ़ते में क्या लिखा हुआ है? Sphere x and y form an isolated system. The mass of y is greater than the mass of x. Perfect. Let's write it here. Mass of y is greater than the mass of x. Sphere y is initially stationary. Perfect. Sphere y is initially stationary, meaning the velocity of sphere y is 0. Sphere x collides elastically with sphere y. Perfect. The speed of sphere x before collision is u. Perfect. The speed of collision of sphere x is u. Perfect. So if I can make the scenario before collision, let me keep this working somewhere on the top side. बेटा अगर मैं बिफोर कोलिजन का सिनेरियो बनाऊं somewhat like this, let's say this is x and let's say this is y, and y is stationary. Y is stationary beta. X is moving with a velocity of u. This is before collision. Which statement must be correct? Sphere x rebounds with a speed that is greater than u, and sphere y moves off with a speed that is less than u. This is not possible. Sir, how do you know that? Beta, can you read this word elastically? Can you read this word elastically? If you are having an elastic collision, that means what? Speed of approach should be equal to the speed of separation. According to option A, your object X is moving with a velocity greater than u. Let's say it is moving with a velocity of 2u. And let's say Y is moving with a velocity less than u, let's say 0.5 u. Can you see the speed of separation is greater than the speed of approach? According to option A, what will be your speed of approach? बेटा ऑप्शन ए के अकॉर्डिंग स्पीड ऑफ अप्रोच क्या होगी? Speed of approach is the velocity with which the particles are moving close to each other before collision. The speed of approach will be u. What will be the speed of separation? Speed of separation is the velocity with which the particles are moving away from each other after collision. The speed of separation will be 2 plus 0.5 u. Both of them are not equal. But in an elastic collision, both of them should be equal. So A cannot be your option. बेटा लॉजिक समझ आई मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? बाकी सारे ऑप्शंस भी मैं इसी तरह इन्वेस्टिगेट करूंगा. यस, डू यू गेट इट? ये चीज समझ आई? यस और नो? वन सेकेंड. यस. चल. अच्छा, इफ यू सी ऑप्शन बी, अगर आप ऑप्शन बी को देखो, अगर आप ऑप्शन बी को देखो बेटा, तो ऑप्शन बी बहुत अच्छी बात कर रहा है. ऑप्शन बी इज सेइंग दैट sphere x rebounds with a speed less than u. Option B states that sphere x rebounds with a speed of, let's say, 0.5 u, and sphere y moves with a speed that is also less than u, that is, let's say, 0.5 u. What is your speed of approach u? What will be your speed of separation? 0.5 u plus 0.5 u. U is equals to u. Yeah, this is a property of elastic collision. B is your answer. All clear beta? समझ आई बात? Yes or no? Hmm. डी कैन नॉट बी योर ऑप्शन अगेन फॉर द सेम रीजन। बेटा डी आपका ऑप्शन क्यों नहीं होगा? अगेन फॉर द सेम रीजन, बिकॉज इफ योर ऑब्जेक्ट गेट्स स्टेशनरी, let's say this object gets stationary, this is traveling with a speed less than u, speed of approach will not be equal to speed of separation. And a sphere x rebound with speed u and a sphere y remains stationary, this is also not possible. A ball has a mass of 0.1 kg. Perfect. A ball has a mass of 0.1 kg and is thrown towards a stationary vertical bat. Perfect. The ball hits the bat with a horizontal velocity of 20 ms minus 1. Perfect. The ball rebounds and leaves the bat with a horizontal velocity of 15 ms minus 1. Perfect. So beta ball bat को hit कर रही है and it leaves the bat with a velocity of what? 15 ms minus 1. You have to calculate the change in momentum of the ball. You have to calculate the change in momentum of the ball. How can you calculate the change in momentum of the ball? Pretty easy. Change in momentum is equals to what? Mass into change in velocity. What is mass? 0.1. What will be your change in velocity? To calculate change in velocity, you can say the left hand side is positive, the right hand side is negative. Mass into change in velocity v minus u. Mass is 0.1. Final velocity is 15. Initial velocity is negative 20. Your change in velocity comes out to be what? 35 multiplied by 0.1, 3.5 Newton second is your change in momentum. Now, most students will ask, Sir, why have you taken this as negative 20? Because can you see the initial velocity is towards the right? And the velocities towards the right are considered to be negative according to our axes. So this is negative 20. D is your answer. At any point in time, if you think anything is difficult, you just ask away. An isolated object of negligible weight is acted by two coplanar forces of the same magnitude. Which object is in equilibrium? So, what were the two conditions for equilibrium? The first condition for equilibrium was that resultant force should be equal to zero. And the second condition for equilibrium was that resultant moment should be equal to zero. Perfect. Now, if you analyze, एक second भाई, हाँ चलो let's see whether you are correct or not. बेटा ऑप्शन डी तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं हो सकता. Why? See, in AS level physics and कभी भी एमसीक्यूज करते हो, यूनिवर्सिटी के टेस्ट के लिए एमसीक्यूज करते हो, एएस लेवल फिजिक्स के लिए करते हो, आगे जाके कभी भी एमसीक्यूज करते हो, यू ऑलवेज eliminate the wrong answers. Okay, so D cannot be your option. Why? Because one is in the vertical direction, one force is in the horizontal direction, resultant force is not equal to zero. D is not your answer. C can also not be your answer. Why? Because both the forces are acting upwards. Again, resultant force is not equal to 0. C and D gets cancelled out. Now, if I see option B, one force is acting downward, one force is acting upward. So, yeah, resultant force is equal to 0. But if you see, this downward force also causes an anti-clockwise movement. This also causes an anti-clockwise movement. So, resultant movement is not equal to 0. B also cannot be your answer. A is your answer. And A is correct as well. Why? Because first of all, resultant force is 0. Downward force is equals to upward force. Resultant force is equals to 0. Also, this force will cause the object to move in the anti-clockwise direction. This force will cause the object to move in the clockwise direction. Both the movements will cancel out each other. Resultant movement is equals to 0. A is your answer. Let's further move ahead. A uniform beam. Now, what does the word of uniform means? बेटा पिछली क्लास में हमने डिस्कस किया था व्हाट डज यूनिफॉर्म मींस. weight weight acts in the middle. Weight acts in the middle. Simple. Beam PQ rests horizontally on a support at point S. Perfect. A rope is attached at one end of the beam. Perfect. A rope is attached at one end of the beam. The rope is at an angle of 60 degree to the vertical and exerts a force F in newtons on the beam. Perfect. Exerts a force F in newtons on the beam. What is the moments in Newton meters of the force F about the pivot S? What is the moment in Newton meter of the force F about the point S? We have to calculate the moment that this force generate about the point S. First of all, what will you do? You will resolve the force. You will say this is the component F cos 60 is one component of the force, and this component of the force will be what? F sine 60. If you have been paying attention in the class, beta, you might know that this F sine 60 wala component is passing through the pivot. Hence, this will generate a moment of 0. Only the F cos 60 will generate a moment. We will take this force F cos 60 and multiply it by this distance till point S. What is this distance till point S? 2.5 minus 0.3. That is 2.2. Can you calculate the moment, beta? Yes, moment is equals to F cosine 60 into 2.2. Any geniuses who would like to answer this? Cosine 60 into 2.2. This comes out to be 1.1. 1.1 F or A is your answer. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. Okay, the diagram shows the dimensions of an elastic rod used to project a stone. Perfect. The tension in the cord is T. When the cord is pulled into the shape shown, which force does the elastic cord exerts on the stone? Beta, you have to apply some common sense here. Some common sense. Just some common sense. These are some tensions. What is the force that the cords exert on the stone? These vertical forces. Now, how can you calculate these forces? Very, very easy. If you realize you are given the hypotenuse, if you realize you are given the hypotenuse and you are given the base, you are given the base as well. Can you calculate this angle theta? Yes. Cos of theta is equals to base over hypotenuse. Cos of theta is equals to base here 6, hypotenuse is 10. Theta is equals to cos inverse of 3 over 5. What does this answer come out to be? Cos inverse zero point 0.6. This comes out to be 53. 53.1 degrees is your theta angle. Now, once you have this theta, can you calculate these forces? Once you have theta, can you calculate these forces? Yeah, this will be equal to what? Tension cosine 53.1. This comes out to what? This comes out to be 3 over 5. 3 over 5 t. This is only this one force. बेटा ये सिर्फ एक फोर्स का है. ये भी 3t over 5 होगा. If you add 3t over 5 and 3t over 5, it will become what? 6t over 5. Any answers like that? B is your answer. A box of weight 40 Newton is pushed with a horizontal force of 20 Newton along level ground for a distance of 2.4 meters. Perfect. The box is then lifted at constant velocity through a height of 1.6 meters by a vertical force. What is the total work done on the box by two forces? थोड़ी सी कॉमन सेंस चाहिए यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी कॉमन सेंस. Let's say you have a box. This box is of 40 न्यूटन. बेटा देखो एग्जामिनर के पास दो तीन तरीके होते हैं आपको कंफ्यूज करने के. फर्स्ट तरीका इज व्हाट? फर्स्ट तरीका इज मेकिंग श्योर दैट योर ब्रेन गेट्स इंफॉर्मेशन ओवरलोडेड. ठीक है. ठीक है. फर्स्ट तरीका इज दैट योर ब्रेन गेट्स इंफॉर्मेशन ओवरलोडेड. और ये वही वाला सवाल है. इसमें एग्जामिनर क्या चाह रहा है? लिटरली इसने ओ लेवल्स बेसिक सवाल पूछा है, लेकिन आपका दिमाग ओवरलोड कर देगा इंफॉर्मेशन से ताकि आप सोच ही नहीं पाओ क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे. लेट्स सी व्हाट इज हैपनिंग हियर. Let's see what is happening here. Perfect. Now, if you see here, beta, क्या हो रहा है? You have a 40 Newton block and A force of 20 Newton is being applied here. Perfect. This 20 Newton force causes the block to move a distance of what? 2.4 meters. Can you calculate this work done? बेटा सिर्फ ये जो ब्लैक में मैंने मार्क किया है, कैन यू कैलकुलेट द वर्क डन फॉर दैट? यस. लेट्स लेबल दिस एज, what should we label this as? Let's label this as journey 1, or let's label this as journey A. The work done for the journey A will be what? 20 Newton into 2.4. This gives you an answer of what? The work done for journey A comes out to be 20 into 2.4, 48 joules. Perfect. Now let's say you are at this point. Let's say your box of 40 Newton is at this point. Now the examiner is performing another journey. Now the examiner is performing another journey. He is lifting this box through a vertical height of 1.6 meter. He is lifting this box through a vertical height of 1.6 meter. Let's say this is your journey B. Can you calculate the work done for this journey? Can you calculate the work done for this journey? Very, very easy. What is the force that is being applied here? The force of weight, that is 40 Newton. The distance is 1.6. What will be the work done for the journey B? 40 into 1.6. Can you calculate this by? 40 into 1.6. ये क्या आ गया भाई? This comes out to be 64 joules. Can you add both of them? 64 plus 48. This gives you an answer of 112 joules. B is your answer. Is everything clear? Yes or no? Yes. Which statement about efficiency is correct? Efficiency does not have a unit. This is a very correct statement. Efficiency does not have a unit. Efficiency क्या होता है बेटा? Efficiency is just a ratio. Efficiency is just a ratio. A plane wave of amplitude A is incident on a surface of area S placed so that it is perpendicular to the direction of travel of wave. The energy per unit time reaching the surface is E. Perfect. A amplitude is A, energy is E, surface area is S. Perfect. The amplitude of the wave is increased to 2A and the area of the surface is increased to half surface area. How much energy per unit time reaches the surface? Now, if you focus, this question is requiring a certain formula. बेटा एक सर्टेन फार्मूला है जो पूरी एएस लेवल कम्युनिटी हमेशा इग्नोर करके जाती है और हमेशा एग्जामिनर इसमें एक मार्क काटता है. व्हाट इज दैट फार्मूला? पावर is equals to intensity into area. This is the formula that most of the brilliant AS level students forget. Power is equals to intensity over area. Now, initially your amplitude was A, so your intensity was I. Perfect. Let me do one thing. यहाँ पे amplitude और area के लिए दोनों के लिए symbol A है ना, तो मैं let me do this. Initially amplitude was AMP, so your intensity was I. Perfect. And initially your area was S. Perfect. So what was your power initially? Your power was intensity into S. IS was your power. And this power is represented how? Energy per unit time. Energy per unit time बेटा क्या होता है? Power. E is your IS. E is equals to IS. Now let's see what are the changes happening. Amplitude को बेटा आपने double कर दिया है. If your amplitude was initially AMP, you have made it twice of AMP. AMP is just an acronym to represent amplitude because there are two symbols of A. One is for area, one is for amplitude. So amplitude has doubled. What will happen to intensity? We have studied intensity is directly proportional to amplitude square. If your amplitude doubles, what will happen to intensity? Intensity becomes 4 times. Perfect. What has happened to your area? Your area has halved. Can you calculate the new energy? Yes. Or power? Can you calculate the new power? Or you can say, can you calculate the new energy per unit time? Yeah. Intensity, that is 4I into half S2. 2 cancel out. This comes out to be 2 is. In place of is, you can place what? E. 2e is your new power. B is your answer. 19 ka answer is B. Simple procedure, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. A steel ball is falling at constant speed in oil. बेटा एक स्टील बॉल है जो कांस्टेंट स्पीड पे फॉइल कर रही है इन ऑयल. Which graph shows the variation with time of the gravitational potential energy and the kinetic energy of the ball? Okay, which graph shows the variation of kinetic energy and gravitational potential energy of the ball? If you are smart enough, you will cancel out option C and D. Why? Because if you are at constant speed, that means your velocity is constant. That means what? That means your kinetic energy beta will be constant. That means your kinetic energy is constant. In C and D, your kinetic energy is increasing. These will not be your options. Secondly, can you realize that gravitational potential energy is equals to what? mgh. Mass and gravitational field strength are constant. So gravitational field strength is directly proportional to the height. So we will have a linear decrease of gravitational potential energy. As the height decreases, gravitational potential energy decreases linearly. B is your answer. चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं भाई. Let's move ahead. When a force of 0.8 Newton is applied to a spring, the length of the spring is 90 millimeter. Perfect. Whenever you apply 0.8 Newton की force, the length of the spring is this. When a force of 1.3 Newton is applied to the same spring, the length is this. Perfect. The spring obeys Hooke's law. What is the spring constant? What is the spring constant? Just focus a bit. थोड़ा सा focus करो बेटा. If you are applying a 0.8 Newton force, your length of the spring is 90 millimeter. If you apply 1.3 Newton की force, your length of the spring is 115 millimeter. Can you tell me how much has the force increased? Can you tell me how much has the force increased from 0.8 to 1.3? 0.5 Newton. The force has increased by an amount of what? 0.5 Newton. Simple. Okay. How much has the length increased? How much has the length increased? Your length has increased by how much? 25 millimeter. If you increase the force by 0.5 millimeter, your length has increased by 25 millimeter. So you can say if you apply a force of 0.5 Newton, your extension increases or your extension comes out to be 25 millimeter. That is equals to what? 25 divided by 1000 is equals to 0.025 meters. Can you calculate the spring constant? Can you calculate the spring constant? Yes, pretty easy to calculate the spring constant. F is equals to KE. Force is 0.5. K is unknown. Extension is 0.025. Can you calculate K? Yes. 0.5 divided by 0.025. Let's calculate it. zero point 0.5 divided by 0.025. 20 comes out to be your answer. D is your answer. Simple as that. 21 का answer is what, beta? D. The answer to 21 is D. Let's further move ahead. An experiment is carried out using a metal wire to investigate how does it respond to a varying tensile force. The cross-sectional area of the wire is constant. Which graph has a gradient that is equals to the Young's modulus of the metal? बेटा ये सवाल तो उसने इसलिए दिया है ताकि आप पास हो जाओ. Which graph has a gradient that is equals to the Young's modulus of the metal? Stress over strain. If you calculate the gradient of this graph, that is will be equal to what? Stress over strain. Stress over strain is equal to what? Young's modulus E. Let's further move ahead. For a wire, Hooke's law is obeyed for a extension for a tension F and extension X. Perfect. The Young's modulus of the material is E. Which expression represents the elastic potential energy stored in the spring? बेटा how can you calculate the elastic potential energy stored in the spring again? ये सवाल उसने क्यों दिया है? ताकि आप फिर से पास हो जाओ. Some questions are just there ताकि आप पास हो जाओ, थोड़ा सा मार्क्स ले लो. What will be the answer here? Anyone? Yeah, C is the correct answer. Yeah. Let's move ahead. See, हमारा correct answer है elastic potential energy is 1 on 2 Fx. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. A plane polarized wave has an amplitude A perfect. The wave is incident normally on a polarizing filter perfect. The transmission axis of the filter is at an angle of theta degree to the plane of polarization of the incident wave. What is the amplitude of the wave that emerges from the filter? So, whenever we study polarization, we study two formulas. Whenever we study polarization, we study two formulas. What are those two formulas? Whenever we study polarization, बेटा एक हम फॉर्मूला पढ़ते हैं इंटेंसिटी के लिए. What is that formula for intensity? I is equals to I naught cos square theta. This is the formula for intensities. And we also study another formula for amplitudes. What is that formula for amplitudes? We know intensity is equals to K A square. Simple. So in place of intensity you can write K A square. In place of I naught you can write K A naught square cos square theta. K gets cancelled out. You will take under root on both sides or a square roots on both sides. This is the formula for amplitude. These are the two formulas that you must remember whenever you study polarization. A is your answer. Let's further move ahead. An electromagnetic wave is traveling through a vacuum. What could be the wavelength and period of the electromagnetic wave? Now, do you remember what is the velocity of electromagnetic wave in vacuum? 3 into 10 is the power of 8 ms minus 1. The velocity of electromagnetic wave in vacuum is 3 into 10 is the power of 8 ms minus 1. Now, what will you do? Beta, you will use the wavelength and period to calculate that if any option gives the velocity like this. Let's try out option A. V is equals to f lambda. You don't have the frequency, so what will you do? 1 over time period into lambda. What is the time period here? 2.5 megaseconds. 2.5 into 10 is the power of 6 into 1.2 into 10 is the power of minus 10. So this will not be my option. I can see right off the bat this cannot be my option. No, no, no. This is not my option. Let's try out option B. Let's try. You can also put this in the calculator, but I can see without putting it into the calculator, this will not be my answer. Let's do it with option B. The wavelength is 1.2 picometers. The wavelength is 1.2 picometers. What is picometers? 10 raised to the power of minus 12. What is the time period? 2.5 into 10 raised to the power of 11 gigaseconds. 2.5 into 10 raised to the power of 11 gigaseconds. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? This means your frequency will become what? 1 upon 2.5 into 10 raised to the power of 11 into 10 raised to the power of what? 10 raised to the power of 9. Since we have a giga here, ठीक है, देखो थोड़ा सा लॉजिकली अंडरस्टैंड करो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. You have to logically understand this number. What is this number? This number is 2.5 into 10 is the power of 11, and then this giga is written. Then बेटा ये giga और लिखा हुआ है, तो आप क्या करोगे? 10 is the power of 9 से further multiply करोगे. This is your time period multiplied by wavelength, that is 1.2 into 10 is the power of minus 12. I think this can be my answer. Let's try it out. Not sure about that, but try करते हैं. 10 is the power of minus 12 divided by 2.5 into 10 is the power of 20. No, this also is not my answer. This is also not my answer. Let's leave this out. Let's try option C. Beta, are you guys getting कि मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? This is also not my answer because my velocity is not coming out to be 3 into 10 is the power of 8. Let's try out option C. Option C में again V is equals to F lambda. You don't have the frequency, so 1 over the time period. What is time period? 4 into 10 is the power of minus 10. And then you have this nanosecond. बेटा एक nanosecond भी लगा हुआ है तो क्या करोगे 10 is the power of minus 9 से further multiplied by wavelength that is 1.2 into 10 is the power of 2 multiplied by this pico that is 10 is the power of minus 12. Let's simplify this. This equals to what? 1 over 4 into 10 is the power of minus 19 into 1.2 into 10 is the power of minus 10. Can we calculate this answer? चलो ये आंसर भी कैलकुलेट करते हैं. We hope ये हमारा आंसर आ जाए. 10 is the power of minus 10 divided by what? 4 into 10 is the power of minus 19. Yeah, this comes out to be my answer. This is equals to 3 into 10 is the power of 8 ms minus 1. बेटा इज दिस क्वेश्चन क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू? ये थोड़ा सा कह सकते हो कि वर्किंग से भरा हुआ क्वेश्चन था. सी इज योर आंसर. ऑल क्लियर? यस और नो? टेल मी इन द चैट. क्लियर हुई बात बेटा ये? यस, क्लियर है. चलो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. नेक्स्ट पार्ट पे आते हैं भाई. नेक्स्ट पार्ट पे आते हैं. लेट्स सी दिस वन. A light of frequency this is incident in a vacuum, normally on a diffraction grating that contains 4 into 10 is the power of 5 lines. Perfect. What is the angle between the adjacent second and third intensity maxima? Perfect. So you have to calculate the angle between the second and third order maxima. तो बेटा आपने क्या करना है? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल थोड़ा सा ब्रेन लगाना है. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू हैव टू अप्लाई अ लिटिल ब्रेन. ओके, किस तरह ब्रेन लगाना है भाई? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन रिलेटेड टू व्हाट? diffraction grating. Which formula will we apply? D sin theta is equals to n lambda. Okay, now sir, I don't have the lambda. I am only given the frequency. Can you realize this, that it is light and we are traveling in a vacuum? What will your velocity be? 3 into 10 is the power of 8 ms minus 1. So if your frequency is 6.7 into 10 is the power of 14 hertz, your speed is 3 into 10 is the power of 8 ms minus 1. Can you calculate the lambda? Yes, v is equals to f lambda. V is 3 into 10 is the power of 8 divided by frequency that is 6.7 into 10 is the power of 14 is equals to your lambda. Let's calculate the lambda. 3 into 10 is the power of 8 divided by 6.7 into 10 is the power of 14. This comes out to be 4.5. 4.5 into 10 is the power of minus 7 meters is your lambda. Now you know the lambda. Now you know the lambda. Literally only half of the question is solved. You also don't know about D. You also don't know about D. But you know the number of lines in 1 meter. But haven't I told you that this D or grating space is what? 1 over the number of lines in a meter. So this will be what? 1 over 4 into 10 is the power of 5. 4 into 10 is the power of 5. Simple. Now we can also calculate this if we want to. We can directly put the answer as well. So yeah, this comes out to be 2.5 into 10 is the power of 6. So you have two things now. You have the wavelength as well and you have the D as well. Perfect. Now you have to calculate the angle for the second order and the angle for the third order. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's calculate the angle for the second order and for the third order. When n is equals to 2, when n is equals to 2, sine theta 2 is equals to 2 into the wavelength, that is 4.5 into 10 is the power of minus 7, divided by d, that is 2.5 into 10 is the power of minus 6, and take a sine inverse of this. Take a sine inverse of this to calculate the angle theta 2. Can anyone do that for me? Sine inverse of this entire thing. कर सकते हो बेटा? वैसे तो I would advise you guys to do the calculation with me, क्योंकि देख रहे हो कितनी ज़्यादा calculation है. If you just keep on watching me कि मैं किस तरह कर रहा हूँ, तो मेरी तो practice बहुत हुई हुई है. You have to do it yourself as well. This theta 2 comes out to be 21 degrees. Theta 2 comes out to be 21.1 degrees. Perfect. How will you calculate theta 3? Just replace n as 3. Just replace n as 3. Both in your calculator and in your working as well. You will get your answer for theta 3. This comes out to be 32.7. 32.7 degrees. Can you calculate the difference between both of them? Yeah. This comes out to be 11.6 degrees. The difference between theta 2 and theta 3 is 11.6 degrees. That is equals to the 12 degree. A is your answer. Simple. बेटा literally कुछ भी complicated नहीं है. Just calculation heavy सवाल है. Let's do this. The siren of a moving police car emits a sound wave with a frequency of this. Perfect. This is your frequency of sound. A stationary observer hears the frequency of sound. This. ठीक है. This is the frequency observed. Now, just by looking at these values, what do I know? That the siren is moving towards the observer. Why? Because the frequency observed is greater than the frequency of the source. The speed of sound is this. Perfect. You have to calculate the direction and the speed of the car. I know that it wouldn't be towards. Oh, so it wouldn't be away. ये towards ही होगी. Why? Because the frequency observed is greater than the frequency of sound. बेटा अगर आपकी frequency observed is greater than the frequency of sound, तो always remember you are moving towards the observer. How can you calculate the velocity? Very, very easy. Frequency observed is equals to the frequency of sound multiplied by speed of sound divided by the speed of sound minus the speed of the source. Okay, let's start inputting the values here. बेटा सिर्फ values डालनी है. Plug and play. Enjoy the question. Frequency observed is 494. Frequency of sound is 404. The speed of sound is 340. Perfect. 340 minus the siren or the police car ki speed. Let's interchange the places. 340 minus V is equals to 440 into 340 divided by 494. Can you calculate the answer? Yes, for sure. 440 into 340 divided by 494. Perfect. 340 minus the answer. Your velocity comes out to be 37. Your velocity comes out to be 37.1 ms minus 1. So 37 ki velocity and towards the observer. B is your answer. 27 ka answer is B. Let's further move ahead. The diagram shows the shape at one instance in time of part of a stretch spring as stretch string, okay, as a wave travels along from left to right. Perfect. What are the directions of the velocity of the point 1, 2, 3 on the string at this instant in time? Perfect. You have to calculate the directions of the velocity at these moments in time. How will you do that? Very, very, very easy. You have to realize one thing. Yes, any answers? Anyone would like to give any answers? Beta, whenever you have to calculate or identify the direction of movement, what do you do? Whenever you have to identify the direction of movement of any point on a wave, you draw an imaginary line through that. Next up, what do you do? You replicate the wave that is backward. बेटा जो
Proceed.
हाँ हाँ हेलो हेलो बोलो, क्या कह रहे हो? आंसर दे रहे थे? नहीं, आंसर ए तो नहीं है। अगर आंसर सी कह रहे हो तो सी भी नहीं है। ओके, चलो लेट मी एक्सप्लेन इट अगेन। लेट्स रीड दिस क्वेश्चन अगेन। मतलब ये क्वेश्चन नहीं समझ आया तुम लोग को। The diagram shows the shape at one instance in time of a part of a stretched string as the wave travels along it from left to right. Perfect. So this is the shape of the string as wave travels from left to right. What are the directions of the velocity at points 1, 2 and 3 on the string? How will you calculate it? Whenever you have to calculate the direction of movement at any point on the wave, what do? You make an imaginary line through that point. You make an imaginary line through that point. And you replicate the wave that is on the back side. बेटा जो back side पे wave है उसको replicate कर देते हो. So what will be your initial direction of movement? Downward. So there is only one option like that. D is your answer. Let's apply the same logic for point 2. I will draw an imaginary line through it and replicate the wave that is backward. What is the initial movement? Upward. Let's do the same thing for point 3. Draw a dotted line through it. Replicate the wave that is backward. What is the initial movement? Downward. Okay, so do you guys get it? How to mark the direction of movement of any particle if it is on a wave? You draw an imaginary line through that and replicate the wave that is on the backside. पार्ट वन में भी हमने यही किया, रेप्लिकेट किया वेव ऑन द बैक साइड, द इनिशियल मोशन इज डाउनवर्ड। पार्ट टू में भी हमने यही किया, draw a dotted line through that, replicated the wave that
सर
is
ये
the...
लॉन्गिट्यूडनल वेव के साथ भी इसी तरह करेंगे?
नहीं नहीं, लॉन्गिट्यूडनल वेव में इसी तरह नहीं करेंगे। वेट अ सेकेंड, लॉन्गिट्यूडनल वेव में क्या करेंगे वो बताऊंगा, आंसर क्वेश्चन आता है तो बता दो। ठीक है।
ठीक।
ट्रांसवर्स वेव्स के लिए क्लियर है बेटा?
जी
चलो,
सर।
परफेक्ट। अब आगे बढ़ते हैं यार। लेट्स सी दिस। Which wave cannot be a longitudinal wave? Okay. Which wave cannot be a longitudinal wave? A diffracted wave can be. A polarized wave cannot be a longitudinal wave. Why? Because polarization cannot happen in longitudinal waves. Let's further move ahead. Microwaves are emitted from two sources at points x and y. Two waves meet at point z. The diagram shows the path of the two waves. The waves emitted from x and y are coherent. Perfect. So basically, just revise the question. What is happening? Two waves are being emitted at x and y. They meet at point z. Perfect. What is a direct consequence of the two waves being coherent? What is a direct consequence of the two waves being coherent? There is a constant difference in phase between the two waves at z. You can say that, yeah. दोनों के बीच में phase difference क्या रहेगा बेटा? Constant. If your waves are coherent, the phase difference between both the waves will remain constant. B is your answer. What is the unit of resistivity? बेटा, if you are good students, unit of resistivity तो याद होना चाहिए. The unit of resistivity is what? Ohm meter. D is your answer. But let's say examination की tension में you forget what is the unit of resistivity. What will you do? You will say resistance is equals to resistivity length divided by area. Let's make resistivity the subject here. Resistance area divided by length is equals to resistivity. This is applicable for all the units that you forget in the examination. बेटा कोई भी यूनिट भूल जाते हो एग्जामिनेशन, दिस इज द आइडियल वे टू कैलकुलेट दैट। ठीक है। सो हाउ विल यू कैलकुलेट द यूनिट ऑफ रेजिस्टिविटी हियर? यू नो रेजिस्टेंस का यूनिट क्या है बेटा? रेजिस्टेंस का यूनिट इज ओम। एरिया के यूनिट्स आर मीटर स्क्वायर डिवाइडेड बाय लेंथ, दैट इज मीटर 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 कैंसिल आउट। ओम मीटर इज योर यूनिट्स ऑफ रेजिस्टिविटी। डी इज योर आंसर। A kettle is connected to 250 volts main supply. Perfect. What are the possible values for the power of the kettle and the current in the kettle? Perfect. Now, how will we do this question? We will apply a very basic formula. We will say power is equals to IV. We will say power divided by current is equals to voltage. Whichever option, whichever option gives us a voltage of 250 will be our answer. Let's try out option A. Power is 500 divided by zero point 0.5. The answer comes out to be what? 1000 volts. This cannot be my answer. Let's try out B. 500 divided by 5. This gives you an answer of 100 volts. This also cannot be my option. Let's try out option C. 2500 divided by zero point 0.1. This will give you an answer of what? 25,000 volts. This is also not my answer. Let's try out option D. 2500 divided by 10. This gives you an answer of what? 250 volts. D is your answer. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. Chalo, let's further move ahead. Let's see this. Which circuit results in the output voltage increasing with increasing temperature? What a beautiful question. बेटा किस सर्किट में आउटपुट वोल्टेज इंक्रीज करेगा विथ इंक्रीजिंग टेम्परेचर? Now there are some very absurd options. There are some very absurd options, such as A. In option A, the output voltage will remain constant because it is connected parallel to a battery. If this is 7 volts, this will remain 7 volts throughout. So A will be cancelled out. Option B is also quite absurd. Beta option B be quite absurd. Can you see the output voltage is across thermistor? If your temperature increases, the resistance of thermistor decreases, the voltage across the thermistor will decrease, voltage output decreases. B also will not be your option. Option C is a very good option. In option C, if your temperature increases, the resistance of the thermistor decreases, the voltage across the thermistor decreases. As the voltage across the thermistor decreases, the voltage output will increase. And if you don't understand this, beta, थोड़ी सी numerical values देख लो. I guess I am giving this example for the second time in this class. Let's say ये एक 6 volts की battery है. Initially, this was getting 3 volts, this was getting 3 volts. As the temperature increases, the resistance of the thermistor decreases. The voltage across this thermistor decreases, becomes 2 volts. What will happen to the remaining voltage? This will go towards the resistor. This will become 4 volts. C is your answer. Simple, nothing complicated, nothing so difficult about it. चलो आगे बढ़ते. Let's see this. 4 resistors, each of resistor R are connected as shown. The total resistance between X and Y is 120 ohm. Perfect. What is the magnitude of resistance R? We have to calculate the magnitude of resistance R. How can you calculate the magnitude of resistance R? Any ideas, geniuses? किस तरह निकालोगे magnitude of resistance? If you analyze this circuit can be made like this. X, Y. This is your resistance R. But beta, if you are good at physics, you will realize one more thing. These three resistors are what? These three resistors are in series. This will become what? 3R. This will become what? 3R. Simple as that. This is R, this is 3R. Can you calculate the total resistance in parallel? Yeah. Very easy. 1 over R plus 1 over 3R is equals to 1 over RT. Simple. Multiplied by 3, multiplied by 3. 3 plus 1 over 3R is equals to 1 over RT. 1 over RT is equals to 4 over 3R. Now, what is your total resistance? 120. So in place of total resistance, place 120 is equals to 4 over 3R. Cross multiplied 3R is equals to 4 into 120. R is equals to 4 into 120 divided by 3. This gives you an answer of what? This gives you an answer of 1, and this will become 40. 160 ohms is your answer. C is your answer to 34. Let's further move ahead भाई.
अरे क्वेश्चन था.
हाँ पूछो पूछो. A cell with internal resistance is connected to a variable resistor as shown. Perfect. The resistance of R is gradually decrease. Perfect. The resistance of R is gradually decrease. Okay, resistance of R is gradually decrease. Perfect. How do current and terminal potential difference across the cell change? Okay. Now, if you decrease the resistance? One thing is very obvious, current will increase. So option A and B will get cancelled out. Option A and B will get cancelled out. Now, what is terminal potential difference? Terminal potential difference is the voltage that you receive in the outer circuit. Now, please listen to this logic carefully. This gets applied in literally every paper. बेटा ये लॉजिक हर पेपर में अप्लाई होती है. वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड. चलो, योर करंट विल इंक्रीज. ठीक है, योर करंट विल इंक्रीज. नाउ इफ योर करंट increases, what will happen? If your current increases, that means, can you see this is an internal resistor? Yeah, this internal resistor has a constant value of resistance small r, and the voltage across this internal resistance is what? I into R. If your current increases, what will happen? Beta, if your current increases, what will happen? The voltage across the internal resistance will increase. If the voltage across the internal resistance increases, the terminal potential difference decreases. C is your answer. Now I know this will not be clear. So let's put in some numerical values here. Let's say this is 6 volts. Initially, let's say 2 volts were being provided to the cell. 4 volts were being provided to this external resistor. 4 volts is your terminal potential difference. What is terminal potential difference? Terminal potential difference is the voltage received by the external circuit. Initially, let's say you had a 6 volt battery, 2 volts was being provided to the internal resistance, 4 volts was being provided to the external resistor. As you decrease the resistance, current increases. As current increases, the voltage across the internal resistance increases. This becomes 3 volts. What will happen? This will decrease. This will also become 3 volts. The terminal potential difference has decreased. C is your answer. बेटा, is this thing clear to everyone? This is a frequently asked question. हर साल ये क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है. You wouldn't believe me, but जब पास पेपर्स खोल के देखोगे तो every year we are asked this question. ठीक है, ठीक है, आगे बढ़े. क्लियर है? चलो भाई आगे बढ़ते हैं. Let's move ahead. Let's move forward. Now let's see this question. The diagram shows a circuit with a cell and three resistors R1, R2 and R3. The cell has negligible internal resistance. The total resistance of the circuit is RT. Which equation for total resistance is correct? Okay, so which equation for total resistance is correct, beta? Can I replace these two series resistors by this? I can say they are equal to what? R1 plus R2. Simple. And we have this parallel resistor of R3. Simple. Can I calculate the combined resistance of these two? Yes. 1 over R2, 1 over RT is equals to 1 over R1 plus R2 plus 1 over R3. Any options like that? D is your answer. 36 ka answer is D. Nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. Hydrogen and deuterium can be represented by the nucleoid symbols this and this. Perfect. What is the difference between hydrogen and deuterium? Deuterium has twice the number of electrons as the hydrogen atom. No. Because if you notice, both hydrogen and deuterium have one proton and they will have one electron. The deuterium nucleus has a charge, but the hydrogen nucleus has no charge. No, this is also false. This is also false. The deuterium nucleus has less mass than the hydrogen nucleus. No, this is wrong as well. Why is option C wrong? Option C is wrong because if you analyze, deuterium has what? One proton and one neutron, which will obviously have a greater mass than the hydrogen nucleus. The deuterium mass has half. Also, if you are smart enough, if A, B, C are wrong, what will be your answer? D. But here we are not attempting to solve the paper. Here we are in the process of learning. हर ऑप्शन को देखना है कि क्या उसका मीनिंग है. The deuterium nucleus has half the charge per unit mass of the hydrogen nucleus. Yeah, this is correct. Why? Because if you see the hydrogen nucleus, we have one proton only. Okay. If you see the deuterium nucleus, you have one proton, one neutron. Here, what will your mass be? Mass will only be the mass of proton. Charge is 1. 1 divided by 1.67, 1.66 into 10 is the power of minus 27. This is the mass of proton. And here in deuterium, what will be your charge? Plus 1 divided by 2 into 1.66 into 10 is the power of minus 27. The mass of proton and neutron are same, so I multiplied it by 2. So what is your answer? D is your answer. Simple. A radioactive source or sample decays by beta negative particles. Perfect. The energy released in the process is same for each nucleus that decays, but the beta particles have a continuous range of kinetic energies. The beta particles that are emitted have a continuous range of kinetic energies. Which statements explain why the beta particles are emitted with a continuous range of kinetic energies? Why? Why are the beta particles released with a continuous range of kinetic energies? Any answers here that you find are suitable? B. Because antineutrinos are released, and antineutrinos have what? They also have a range of kinetic energies. So your beta particles also have a range of kinetic energies. What particle is not a fundamental particle? Which particle is not a fundamental particle? Electron is a fundamental particle. Neutrino is a fundamental particle. Neutron is not a fundamental particle. What is the charge of an anti-top quark? What is the charge of an anti-top quark? If you remember, the charge of top quark was what? The charge of top quark was what? Plus 2 over 3e. If I apply an anti here, the charges flip. This positive will become a negative charge. Any answers like that? A is your answer. All clear? Is question 1 to 40 clear for this paper beta?